now, okay, and you want to look at sustainability for the first time, where do you begin? What is that stepwise approach that one can take so that they can reach to becoming leaders in their own space? Yeah.
I think the first step is a mindset shift. That's the first step. We've already discussed, and there's enough research material out there to suggest that being strong in ESG is actually good for business. So the future market that any company is going to operate in is going to demand this. So let's get that out of the picture. That's your first driver. From a mindset perspective, you have to understand why it's important to your organization particularly. Understand your value chain and understand the competitive advantage that you can get by being a sustainable company or being a supplier of choice on that front. The next step would be to first measure where you are. It's very important. A lot of data is questionable today.
Yes.
So I think being very confident about where you are and being very honest about it, being very transparent about it is the first step. Because unless you know that, you will not know which areas to really tackle. The next step is to actually make a start somewhere. So I think maybe this has been associated with me in many of my forums that I've spoken on, but the line about don't let perfect be the enemy of good really applies here. Because what you will actually see is that 80% of the journey on sustainability is actually achievable very fast. It's the same 80-20 principle. You can get 80% of the way very, very quickly. And those will offer you very quick paybacks and very quick wins. So don't worry about the 20% now. Get 80% of the way, and the entire market and technologies and policies and regulation will evolve to a point where the remaining 20% will become easier and easier as time goes on. So don't worry about, for example, if India has taken a target of net zero 2070, or 2070 seems very far away. So don't worry about how will we get to net zero by 2070. Worry about how can I reduce 10% of my emissions by 2025. So break it up into smaller targets, set achievable, manageable targets. Look at green financing as an option in the ecosystem. Look at other value chain partners with whom you can collaborate with and make a start somewhere. I think if you see any of these global indices, whether you're a big company, small company, a startup, the signal that they all give you is that what they want to see is movement. They're not really looking towards the end goal right now. What they really just want to see, even if you take something as complicated as the Global Science-Based Targets Initiative, what the SBTi says is that it's not the end goal that's as important because the goal is always shifting. Today it's 1.5 degrees. In 10 years, I hope that doesn't happen, but it may become 1 degree because of the lack of action that's happening globally. But even then, you can't worry about, what if it becomes 1 degree in the future? It's the now and the present that you have to focus on, really start moving on that. And that sends a very good signal to investors and customers. So I think get moving, get started, don't worry about the end goal, get to 80% of the way and the rest will work out.
So I think great, Ram. I think one point that I really agree with you is that, sustainability, I think for all our viewers, all those who are going to start on their ESG journey, it's very important to know that it is a journey. You don't really achieve everything at the beginning, though at certain points you will feel that, okay, you've achieved a lot of things when you start, but there is always certain places where you have to really work on some important things to deliver that, that little margin that is still left. Absolutely. Also, Ram, I think it's also, insightful for our viewers to also know that it's not always the regulations that are driving this whole conversation. So when I meet some companies or other stakeholders, I kind of realize that they wait for the push. So what do you think now? Is it actually the regulations that are still driving it, or does it make sense for organizations to embed sustainability for value creation?
I think it depends upon the kind of markets that you are playing in. Now, if you're being very realistic, in the Indian scenario, regulation is the biggest driver for sustainability. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Because if you take the entire Indian industry and MSMEs, let's just take MSMEs. MSMEs, I think, contribute about 20 to 25% of the GDP of this country. Imagine if they all took up these sustainable practices because of regulation. And because of that, they're able to report lower carbon footprints, better performance on water, better performance on human rights, on all the social indicators. They could become a supplier of choice to the world. So India can actually become a hub for supplying low carbon products, low carbon raw materials, environmentally friendly raw materials to the entire world. That's a massive opportunity. So regulations don't need to be looked at as a stick or a whip at all times. It's a big driver for growth. But having said that, there is a pull factor as well. Like I said, we spoke about individual consumers, but there are B2B segments as well, who are governed by demands from other geographies where the mandates are much more stricter than ours.
Yes.
CBAM being a very classic case. I don't want to get into too much technical details on this,
yeah.
but the whole world is demanding more of each other in terms of sustainability. And you are not an isolated market, so you need to keep pace with that.
Yeah.
If regulations don't demand that of you today, rest assured they will demand it of you 5-10 years from now. You know, so what we know as a pull today will eventually become a push.
I think yes, absolutely, and I think here, some takeaways for our viewers again is that I think it's not. First of all, it's a journey. Second thing that we all should know is that regulations are really playing a huge role here. So when Ram was mentioning about it becoming important even for the MSMEs, SMEs, there will be a whole bunch of these industries which will be demanding for certain sustainability related data from their supply chain, and the supply chain will have to put that data up if they want to continue collaborating with the parent organization. So all of this is going to go hand in hand. There is a lot that is dependent on how collaboratively we are able to achieve that goal, and it's not just the parent organization anymore, but I think it's also the supply chain together with the organization really making that difference.